The sonar pulse slices through the blackness like a blade. 200 feet beneath the icy Atlantic, the crew of U-549 becomes motionless at their posts, holding their breath, eyes widening. They recognize that noise. The deadly signature of Allied destroyers pursuing German U-boats. Yet something feels wrong this time. There's no thrashing of propellers above. No panicked attempt to flee. The pulse remains fixed, steady, relentless. Lieutenant Commander Kretsch clutches the periscope housing, his knuckles bleached white. Go deeper, he breathes. But the opportunity has passed. Above the surface on the USS Elmore, Executive Officer Lieutenant Connie examines his sonar display with meticulous focus. The emerald line beats rhythmically, target locked. Distance 300 yards, depth 200 feet. Unlike previous depth charge engagements, Connie maintains visual contact with his quarry. The submarine hasn't disappeared into the acoustic shadow zone. The Predator hasn't lost sight. Hedgehog teams stand prepared. 24 spigot launchers protrude from the destroyer's forward section like the quills of some industrial creature. Each warhead masses 65 pounds. Each contains 35 pounds of Torpex, a compound 50% more destructive than TNT. Each features a contact detonator that will only activate upon striking something solid, something like a submarine's pressure hull. The command arrives sharp and definitive. Fire. In under 2 seconds. All 24 warheads arc skyward into the pewter dawn, then dive into the Atlantic in a flawless circular formation. They descend without sound at 23 feet per second. 3 times swifter than traditional depth charges. No detonations, no alerts, just silent warheads plummeting toward their mark through the frigid water. Inside U-549, someone murmurs a prayer. 30 seconds of quiet, then boom, boom, 3 direct impacts. The pressure hull crumples like tissue. This is the account of the weapon that transformed submarine warfare permanently. The projectile that crushed U-boat pressure hulls like cardboard cylinders. Before you continue deeper, hit that subscribe button because what follows next rewrote the principles of naval warfare. May 1941, Liverpool Bay. The destroyer, HMS Westcott, lies at anchor, its deck covered with what resembles an oversized steel tube porcupine. 24 spigots organized in 4 rows of 6, each angled outward at precisely measured degrees. The weapon lacks an official designation yet. The sailors have christened it Hedgehog because the vacant launcher tubes mirror the spines on a hedgehog spine. Commander Charles Goodeve of the Royal Navy's Department of Miscellaneous Weapons Development observes from the pier. For 18 months, his division has developed this revolutionary concept, a forward-launching anti-submarine mortar. The concept appears straightforward, the execution anything but. The core difficulty with depth charges had crystallized painfully through 2 years of convoy engagements. A destroyer would locate a U-boat on ASTIC, the British sonar apparatus, then accelerate toward the contact. But as distance decreased below 300 yards, the submarine would vanish. The returning signal merged with the outgoing pulse, what technicians term the instantaneous echo. During those vital final moments, the U-boat commander operated in a blind sector. He could descend, rotate, reduce velocity, executing frantic evasive actions while his pursuer fumbled in acoustic darkness. By the time the destroyer released its depth charges over the stern, the submarine had relocated. The charges detonated at predetermined depths, generating enormous underwater concussions that thoroughly disrupted sonar for up to 15 minutes. If the U-boat survived, and most did, it possessed a quarter-hour advantage to escape while the hunter waited for the ocean to settle sufficiently to search again. The numbers were devastating. 5,174 depth charge strikes by British forces, 85 kills, a proportion of 60 to 1. Goodeve's answer: launch the charges forward while the submarine remained detectable on ASTIC. Strike it before entering the blind sector. The warheads would only detonate upon direct contact with the hull. A miss meant silence. Sonar contact preserved. Another strike possible instantly. A hit meant guaranteed death. On that May morning in Liverpool Bay, HMS Westcott aimed at a charted wreck and launched the inaugural test volley. The outcome surpassed every expectation. The physics of submarine hunting in 1941 was a probability game played with mortality. A German Type 7 U-boat possessed a pressure hull fabricated from high-strength steel, approximately 22 millimeters thick, just under an inch. This hull could resist external pressure down to its test depth of 230 meters, roughly 750 feet. Beyond that existed the crush depth, the threshold where the mathematics of physics overwhelmed the metallurgy of steel. Every 10 meters of depth added 1 atmosphere of pressure, 14.7 pounds per square inch, pressing against every square inch of the hull surface. At 200 feet deep, a U-boat endured 20 atmospheres. At 300 feet, 30 atmospheres over 400 pounds per square inch, attempting to compress the steel cylinder like a tin container. A standard British Mark 7 depth charge carried 290 pounds of amytal explosive. When detonated, it needed to be within 20 feet of the submarine to rupture the pressure hull. Double that distance, 40 feet, might force the vessel to surface with severe damage, but the charge exploded at a fixed depth at a distance from the target. Water cushioned the blast, dispersing its force as a shock wave that weakened exponentially with range. The mathematics was ruthless. To guarantee a kill, you required the depth charge to detonate within arm's length of a submarine that could be anywhere in a three-dimensional sphere of ocean, maneuvering at unknown depth and bearing while you operated blind. U-boats survived by exploiting this fundamental vulnerability. Captain Lieutenant Eric Topp, commander of U-552, endured 197 depth charge strikes during the conflict. U-427 survived 678 depth charges in a single confrontation in April 1945, an 11-hour ordeal that left the crew physically and mentally devastated but the pressure hull intact. The Hedgehog projectile changed everything because it eliminated the buffer. 35 pounds of Torpex detonating in direct contact with the pressure hull delivered its complete explosive force into the steel. The blast didn't have to fracture the hull through water-transmitted shock. It punctured straight through the metal, creating holes 3 to 4 inches in diameter. At depth, those holes became death sentences measured in minutes. Commander Goodev's division confronted a deceptively straightforward challenge. Engineer a bomb that could penetrate water, descend rapidly, strike a curved steel surface at variable angles, and still detonate reliably. Early prototypes failed dramatically. Bombs with pointed tips skipped off the water's surface like pebbles. Spherical designs tumbled unpredictably. Too light charges lacked destructive capability. Too heavy bombs descended slowly, giving submarines time to escape. The breakthrough emerged from studying Italian naval publications. An article about German U-boats included a photograph of a technician standing on the pressure hull to service the deck plating above. By calculating the technician's approximate height from his leg length, Goodev's engineers estimated the critical gap between deck and pressure hull. This distance determined whether a hit on the outer deck would still transfer sufficient explosive force to breach the inner pressure hull. The final design employed a flat nose to prevent skipping, a tubular tail for stability, and 30 pounds of explosive, later increased to 35 when tests demonstrated 20 pounds insufficient. But the genuine innovation was the contact fuse mounted in the nose. It had to withstand the shock of hitting water at terminal velocity, 23 feet per second, yet still detonate from the much lighter impact against a submarine hull traveling underwater. The fuse resolved what engineers called the water entry problem. Each projectile splashed down nose first, and a spring-loaded propeller began spinning as the bomb descended. After approximately 5 feet of descent, the propeller had armed the fuse. If the projectile struck a hard surface submarine hull, steel deck, even the ocean floor, the impact triggered detonation. But if it landed in soft mud or missed entirely, it remained inert. No explosion, no acoustic interference. Production commenced in late 1942, 9 months after Prime Minister Winston Churchill personally witnessed a demonstration. The first Hedgehog-equipped destroyers entered North Atlantic service in November 1942. The first confirmed U-boat kill arrived that same month when HMS Farnham struck an unidentified submarine in the Bay of Biscay. But nobody expected what was about to unfold in the Pacific theater. Nobody predicted the USS England, May 1944, the Solomon Islands. Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton, captain of the destroyer escort USS England, reads the decoded transmission for the third time. Japanese submarine I-16 is transporting rice provisions to the garrison at Bougainville. Departure date May 14th from truck. Expected arrival May 19th. The England is a Buckley-class destroyer escort, barely 1,400 tons, one-quarter the displacement of a fleet destroyer. Her crew number's 186. She carries 3 3-inch guns, 12 anti-aircraft weapons, 3 torpedo tubes, and 1 game-changing piece of equipment, a Mark 10 Hedgehog launcher mounted on her bow. Pendleton's executive officer, Lieutenant John Williamson, has transformed the England into what the crew calls a taut ship. For months, Williamson has drilled the sonar operators, Hedgehog crews, and engine room gang until they function like a precision instrument. Other captains might resent such an aggressive XO. Pendleton, recognizing talent when he sees it, gives Williamson free rein. The England sails with 2 sister ships, USS George and USS Raby. Their orders: intercept I-16, find it, sink it. May 19th. Sonar operator John Prock calls out contact at 1,500 yards. The I-16 is a veteran vessel commanded by Lieutenant Commander Takasu Yoshitaka, one of Japan's most experienced submarine captains. Yoshitaka knows the danger. He attempts a classic evasion following the England's wake, staying directly astern where the destroyer's sonar has maximum difficulty maintaining lock. 4 Hedgehog attacks, 4 misses. Williamson recalculates. The submarine is playing games with depth, using the wake turbulence for acoustic camouflage. On the 5th attack run at 2:33 p.m., Williamson adjusts for a deeper contact than his sonar indicates. The Hedgehog salvo fires. 24 projectiles arc forward, splash down in their circular pattern. 30 seconds of silence. Then the crew hears it. 4 explosions, maybe 6. Difficult to count when they overlap. 2 minutes later, a massive underwater detonation rocks the England, lifting the stern clear of the water and throwing men off their feet. Debris begins surfacing. Oil spreads across the ocean in a slick that will measure 6 miles long by morning. The USS England has drawn first blood. Inside I-16, those final 2 minutes were hell compressed into heartbeats. The first Hedgehog projectile struck near the forward torpedo room, punching through the outer hull and detonating against the pressure hull. 35 pounds of Torpex at point-blank range. The explosion didn't just crack the steel, it obliterated a section approximately 8 inches in diameter. At 200 feet depth, seawater doesn't leak. It explodes inward like a fire hose driven by 20 atmospheres of pressure, 400 gallons per minute. The second and third hits struck amidships. The forward compartments flooded instantly. Emergency lighting flickered, then died as seawater reached the electrical systems. Men shouted in darkness. The submarine's trim became uncontrollable, bow heavy, nose down, sinking. Here's what most documentaries won't tell you about submarine pressure hull breaches. The crew doesn't drown first. The physics are more horrific. As water floods the compartments, it compresses the internal atmosphere. Pressure equalizes rapidly. Temperature rises proportionally. Basic thermodynamics. Within 90 seconds, the air temperature inside I-16's forward compartments exceeded 200 degrees Fahrenheit. By the time the submarine passed its crush depth 2 minutes later, internal temperatures likely reached 300 degrees. The crew's lungs seared. Consciousness faded, not from drowning, but from breathing superheated steam. Then came the implosion. At approximately 350 meters beyond the Type 1 submarine's design limits, the pressure hull failed catastrophically. Not gradually, not with warning groans and popping rivets like Hollywood depicts. When submarine hulls fail, they fail explosively. The implosion generates a shock wave powerful enough to detonate torpedoes, collapse remaining compartments, and compress the boat into a fraction of its original length. This was the sound the England sonar operators heard. A heavy crunching explosion that propagated through the ocean like underwater thunder. 68 Japanese sailors died in those 2 minutes. Not one survived to see the ocean surface again. By nightfall, the oil slick from I-16 covered 6 square miles. And Admiral Somu Toyota, commander of Japan's combined fleet, had no idea his submarine scouting line had just been compromised. The England was just getting started. May 20th, 1944. U.S. Navy codebreakers intercept and decode another message. Admiral Toyota has established a submarine picket line stretching from Truk Island to west of Manus. 7 boats stationed at precise intervals to detect any American fleet movement. The submarines, I-16 already destroyed, RO-104, RO-105, RO-106, RO-108, RO-116, and RO-117. Toyota's intelligence indicates a major American buildup near Manus Island and the Marshall Islands. He believes the next invasion target will be Palau Islands. If his submarine picket can detect the invasion fleet's departure, his combined fleet can intercept and destroy it. Everything depends on those 7 submarines. The U.S. Navy High Command makes a calculated decision. The England, George, and Raby will systematically hunt down and destroy the entire picket line. Not by accident, not through random encounters, but by deliberately rolling up the line from one end to the other using decoded position reports. It's submarine warfare as assassination, targeted, methodical, surgical. May 22nd, 3:50 a.m., the George's radar detects RO-106 cruising on the surface to recharge batteries. The submarine crashed dives when illuminated by searchlight. The George fires hedgehogs, miss. 25 minutes later, the England makes sonar contact at 1,400 yards. First salvo, miss. Engine noise indicates the submarine is maneuvering aggressively. Standard evasion protocols. 5:01 a.m. Williamson fires the second hedgehog attack. At least 3 projectiles detonate on target. The crew watches wreckage bubble to the surface as dawn breaks. By noon, the oil slick confirms the kill. RO-106 destroyed, 56 crew lost. May 23rd, the 3 destroyer escorts continue north, hunting the next submarine in the picket line. At 6 a.m., the Raby detects RO-104 on radar, but something goes wrong with the Raby's hedgehog attacks. 4 salvos, all misses. The George tries next. 7 hedgehog attacks between 7:17 a.m. and 8 to 10 a.m. Every salvo fails to connect. The submarine commander is good. He's listening to the attacker's engines, timing his evasion turns perfectly, diving deeper, using every trick in the manual, but he hasn't fought the England yet. 8:34 a.m. Lieutenant Williamson studies the sonar screen with predatory focus. RO-104 is at approximately 300 feet, deeper than doctrine recommends for hedgehog attacks. Standard procedure discourages engaging targets beyond 400 feet. But Williamson has spent months drilling his crew for exactly this scenario. He knows his equipment's capabilities better than the manual. Fire hedgehogs, 45 seconds. The crew counts explosions, 10, maybe 12. Difficult to say when detonations overlap. Then comes the sound every submarine hunter learns to recognize. The sharp, brittle cracking of internal bulkheads, collapsing, breaking up noises. 3 minutes later, the secondary explosion as the submarine exceeds crushed depth. Debris surfaces at 10:45 a.m. The oil slick expands throughout the afternoon. RO-104 destroyed. 54 crew lost. In 3 days, the England has sunk 3 submarines. It's an extraordinary achievement. Most destroyer escorts hope for 1 submarine kill during their entire war service, but the England's crew isn't celebrating. They're reloading hedgehogs, plotting the next target's probable location, preparing for the next hunt. May 24th, 1:50 a.m., the England makes sonar contact with RO-116, first hedgehog attack, 3 to 5 detonations. But this time, there's no massive secondary explosion, just breaking up noises. The submarine is dying, but slowly. When dawn breaks at 7:02 a.m., only a small amount of oil and debris is visible. By the next day, the slick has grown to several square miles. Some sources report the submarine may have imploded gradually rather than catastrophically. Either way, RO-116 never surfaced, 56 crew lost. The Japanese Imperial Navy won't declare the boat officially missing until June 25th, more than a month later. They have no idea what's happening to their submarine picket line. Radio silence protocols mean the boats don't report routine positions. From Toyota's perspective, his early warning network is functioning perfectly. In reality, the England is systematically erasing it from existence. 3 submarines in 6 days. But the USS England isn't finished. She's about to make naval history. May 26th, a U.S. Navy hunter-killer group arrives. The escort carrier USS Hoggett Bay with 4 Fletcher-class destroyers. The relief force is supposed to take over the submarine hunt. The England, George, and Raby need to resupply at Manus Island. They've expended most of their Hedgehog projectiles and depth charges. The 3 destroyer escorts begin the journey to Manus. It's supposed to be a routine transit. May 26th, 11:04 p.m., the England sonar operator calls out contact. Another submarine. This one is our O-108, though they don't know the designation yet. The submarine is surfaced, running on diesels, recharging batteries. Commander Pendleton faces a decision. They're supposed to be heading for resupply. The Hedgehog magazine is half empty. The crew has been on continuous alert for 7 days, but this is a clear contact, and the submarine hasn't detected them yet. Pendleton orders 1 attack run. The England closes to optimal firing range. Our O-108 dives when it detects the destroyer escort's engines. Too late, Williamson has a solid sonar lock. 1 Hedgehog salvo, 4 to 6 hits. Breaking up noises follow immediately. The submarine's pressure hull has been catastrophically breached. 53 Japanese sailors die in less than a minute. Our O-108 destroyed, 4 submarines in 9 days. When the England docks at Manus Island on May 27th, her crew looks like ghosts, exhausted, hollow-eyed, running on adrenaline and coffee. They sleep in shifts while the ship's magazines are reloaded. Fresh Hedgehog projectiles, new depth charges, fuel, provisions. 48 hours later, the England sails again, this time with a 4th destroyer escort added to the group, USS Spangler. The hunting pack is back at full strength. May 30th, the hunter-killer group receives intelligence about our O-105. This submarine is different. It carries not just its regular crew, but also Captain Reizo Kato, commander of Japanese Submarine Division 51, a high-value target. The submarine has already survived several close calls. Its captain, Lieutenant Junichi Aono, is experienced and clever. On a previous patrol, our O-105 evaded 2 torpedoes from the USS Tarpon through radical maneuvering. This crew won't die easily. May 30th, 1:10 the destroyer USS Hazelwood detects our O-105 on radar running surfaced. The submarine dives immediately, but it surfaces again at 3:10 a.m. A dangerous gambit, suggesting either damaged batteries or a desperate need for fresh air after extended submersion. The George and Raby both gain radar contact. Our O-105's captain executes a brilliant maneuver, positioning his boat directly between the 2 destroyers. Neither can fire Hedgehogs without risking hitting the other American ship. For 5 critical minutes, the submarine exploits this geometric protection. Then our O-105 dives again. Now it's a sonar hunt. The Raby fires first. Hedgehog salvo, miss. The George attacks, miss. The Raby attacks again, miss. The Spangler moves in for her turn. Miss. The submarine commander is putting on a virtuoso performance, diving deep, turning sharply, varying speed, using every evasion technique developed in 3 years of Pacific combat. At dawn, Commander N, the officer commanding the George and Raby, transmits a radio message that will become legendary. Oh, hell, go ahead, England. 7:36 a.m., Lieutenant Williamson fires his Hedgehog salvo, 6 to 10 detonations. The crew counts them, trying to stay calm, breaking up noises. Then at 7:41 a.m., 5 minutes later, the massive secondary explosion. The pressure hull has imploded. Oil and debris surface gradually. By afternoon, the slick is visible for miles. Our O-105 destroyed. 55 crew lost, including Captain Cato, 5 submarines in 12 days. Admiral Ernest King, Chief of Naval Operations, sends a message that will be quoted for decades. There will always be an England in the United States Navy. Years later, the destroyer escort USS George's commander sends a message to the England asking, "God damn it, how do you do it?" The response from Commander Thoburn, commanding Destroyer Escort Division 40, is both witty and revealing. Personnel and equipment worked with the smoothness of well-oiled clockwork. As a result of our efforts, recording Angel working overtime, checking in submariners joining honorable ancestors, but the England isn't finished yet. What made the Hedgehog so devastatingly effective wasn't just the explosive. It was the combination of 5 technological advantages that previous anti-submarine weapons couldn't match. First, forward-firing capability while maintaining sonar contact. Traditional depth charges required the attacking ship to pass directly over the submarine, entering the acoustic blind spot. The submarine vanished from sonar at the exact moment when precise targeting mattered most. Hedgehog projectiles launched 200 yards ahead, striking the target while it remained visible on sonar. The submarine commander had no idea when the attack was coming. No approaching propeller noise, no warning. Second, contact detonation. Depth charges exploded at preset depths regardless of whether they hit anything. The massive explosions disrupted sonar for up to 15 minutes, allowing surviving submarines to escape during the acoustic chaos. Hedgehog projectiles only detonated on direct contact with a hard surface. A miss meant silence. Sonar remained clear. Another attack could begin immediately. Third, explosive efficiency. When a depth charge detonated, water cushioned the blast, dissipating explosive force as expanding shock waves. The submarine's pressure hull had layers of protection, distance, water compression, time for the shock to weaken. A Hedgehog projectile eliminated that cushion by detonating directly against the steel hull. All 35 pounds of Torpex released their energy into the pressure hull at point-blank range. Fourth, sink rate. Depth charges sank at approximately 7 to 16 feet per second, depending on design. Hedgehog projectiles sank at 23 feet per second, 3 times faster. A submarine at 200 feet depth would be struck in under 9 seconds, giving the crew almost no time for evasive maneuvers once the projectiles entered the water. Fifth, pattern coverage. The 24 projectiles landed in a circular pattern 130 feet in diameter. This coverage area accounted for most evasion possibilities. Even if the submarine turned hard, changed depth, or attempted to reverse course, several projectiles would likely strike. The statistics speak for themselves. British depth charge attacks in World War II achieved a kill ratio of 1 submarine per 60 attacks. Hedgehog attacks, 1 submarine per 5 to 6 attacks. The England's record, 5 submarines, 5 attacks. June 1944. RO-117, the last submarine in Admiral Toyoda's picket line, receives orders to investigate the radio silence from the other 6 boats. The submarine's captain approaches cautiously, aware that something has gone catastrophically wrong with Operation Ago's early warning network, but RO-117 never encounters the England. Other elements of the U.S. Navy submarine force locate and sink it before the destroyer escorts can make their 6th kill. The England's extraordinary run ends at 5 confirmed kills in 12 days, a record that has never been broken in submarine warfare history. No single ship before or since has sunk 5 submarines in such a short time span. The strategic impact was immediate. Admiral Toyoda, believing his submarine picket line was still operational, sent his combined fleet toward Palau Islands based on incorrect intelligence. On June 15th, American forces invaded Saipan in the Marianas, completely bypassing Palau. The Japanese fleet, out of position and low on fuel, scrambled to respond. The resulting Battle of the Philippine Sea became a catastrophic defeat for Japan's carrier aviation, forever remembered as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The loss of the submarine picket contributed directly to Japan's failure to anticipate and counter the Marianas invasion. 6 submarines and their entire crews, 358 men, died providing no intelligence whatsoever because their radios remained silent until it was too late. The England received the Presidential Unit Citation. But the ship's story doesn't end in glory. On May 9, 1945, exactly 1 year after her deployment to the Pacific, a Japanese kamikaze aircraft struck the England, killing 37 crew members and wounding 25 others. The ship survived, but was so badly damaged that she spent the remainder of the war in repair. Lieutenant John Williamson, the executive officer whose calculations and crew training had made the submarine kills possible, survived the war. In 1980, he co-authored an article for Proceedings magazine detailing the England's extraordinary patrol. He maintained that the key to their success wasn't luck. It was drilling the crew until every man could perform his job unconsciously under maximum stress. The Hedgehog made the kills possible, but the England's crew made them happen. The Atlantic Theater told its own story of Hedgehog effectiveness. In February 1944, the British 2nd Escort Group, a flotilla of 6 sloops centered on HMS Starling, sank 6 German U-boats in 19 days using a combination of Hedgehog attacks and depth charges. HMS Starling herself would be credited with 14 U-boat kills during the war, making her the most successful anti-submarine warfare ship of all time. But the most technically significant kill came on April 29, 1944. The USS Elmore detected U-549 off the coast of Massachusetts. The German submarine had torpedoed the escort carrier USS Block Island hours earlier, the only U.S. carrier sunk in the Atlantic during the war. The Elmore was hunting vengeance. First Hedgehog attack, miss. The projectiles sank silently past U-549, disappearing toward the ocean floor, but Lieutenant Connie maintained perfect sonar contact. The Elmore's engines purred smoothly at attack speed, 30 seconds to reload. The submarine couldn't hear the approach. Hedgehog attacks gave no acoustic warning. Second attack, 3 detonations, direct hits on the pressure hull at approximately 250 feet. 4 minutes later, sonar operators heard the unmistakable sound of implosion. A heavy, crunching explosion as U-549's pressure hull collapsed under the mounting pressure of her uncontrolled descent. 53 German sailors died as their submarine crumpled like a beer can. The physics of that implosion bear repeating because they're so often misunderstood. When 3 Hedgehog projectiles punched holes in U-549's pressure hull, seawater didn't just leak in. At 250 feet depth, 25 atmospheres of pressure drove water through those openings at catastrophic velocity. The submarine's buoyancy tanks flooded immediately. Depth control became impossible. As the boat sank deeper, external pressure increased exponentially. At approximately 350 meters, well beyond the Type 7's design depth, the hull failed. Not gradually, catastrophically. The implosion generated a shock wave powerful enough to register on sonar miles away. The remaining air inside the hull compressed into a superheated plasma lasting milliseconds. Any crew members still alive were killed instantly by the compression wave. There is no record of anyone surviving a pressure hull breach at depth during World War II. The aftermath of the Hedgehog's deployment changed submarine warfare doctrine permanently. By mid-1944, German U-boat commanders reported that Allied anti-submarine weapons had become so effective that patrol survival rates dropped below 25%. Of submarines deployed after January 1944, 3 out of 4 never returned. The statistics from the Battle of the Atlantic tell the story in numbers. During 1943, the climactic year of the campaign, Torpex-loaded aerial depth charges and Hedgehog attacks sank 87 U-boats out of 219 total losses. In the final 2 years of the war, Allied forces achieved submarine kill rates 10 times higher than 1,941-1,942. The German response was technological desperation. The Kriegsmarine accelerated development of the Type 21 U-boat, a revolutionary design with streamlined hull, enhanced battery capacity, and snorkel underwater breathing system. These boats could remain submerged for weeks, making them nearly immune to Hedgehog attacks by avoiding surface detection entirely, but the Type 21 entered service too late. Only 4 boats completed war patrols before Germany's surrender. Japan faced similar losses. Of approximately 170 submarines deployed in the Pacific Theater after 1943, only about 30 survived the war. The combination of improved sonar, Hedgehog-equipped destroyer escorts, and aggressive hunter-killer tactics created an underwater environment where Japanese submarines had life expectancies measured in months. The human cost was staggering. Approximately 30,000 German submariners died during the war, a casualty rate exceeding 70%. Japanese submarine forces suffered similar losses, roughly 16,000 submariners killed. These weren't just statistics. These were trained specialists, experienced crews, irreplaceable human capital. The USS England herself suffered her own casualties. The May 1945 kamikaze attack killed 37 crew members, including many veterans of the submarine hunting patrol a year earlier. The ship was decommissioned in 1946, awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, and scrapped in 1963, but her record remains. 5 submarines sunk in 12 days using Hedgehog attacks. 5 for 5. 100% kill rate across 5 separate engagements. In the entire history of naval warfare, no ship before or since has matched that performance. Today, the Hedgehog itself is obsolete, replaced by homing torpedoes, rocket-propelled depth charges, and sophisticated sonar systems that would seem like science fiction to the crews of HMS Westcott or USS England. Modern submarines operate at depths the Hedgehog could never reach, with stealth capabilities that render World War II detection methods useless. But the fundamental principle forward-firing weapons launched while maintaining sonar contact remains embedded in modern anti-submarine warfare. The RBU-6000 rocket launcher used by Russian and Indian navies is a direct descendant of Hedgehog design philosophy. American AS-ROC missiles follow the same logic. Strike the target before losing sensor lock. Eliminate the acoustic blind spot. Maintain continuous tracking. The Hedgehog's legacy lives in another way. It proved that technological innovation could break tactical stalemates. For 2 years, U-boats hunted merchant convoys with near impunity, sinking ships faster than shipyards could replace them. Depth charges couldn't stop the slaughter, but one weapon system combining forward-firing mortar, contact fuses, and enhanced explosives shifted the balance. Within 18 months of Hedgehog's widespread deployment, the Battle of the Atlantic was effectively over. There's a memorial in Wilmington dedicated to the crew of USS England. Engraved on the monument are the names of the 6 submarines she destroyed: I-16, RO-106, RO-104, RO-116, RO-108, RO-105, and beneath those names, 5 submarines in 12 days. A record unmatched in naval warfare. Lieutenant John Williamson, the executive officer whose calculations and crew training made those kills possible, lived until 2014. In interviews late in his life, he maintained that the England's success wasn't about having superior weapons. Other ships had Hedgehogs and achieved far less. It was about drilling the crew until every man executed his role flawlessly under pressure. The weapon was just a tool. The crew made it lethal. The shell that crushed U-boat pressure hulls like paper tubes. The weapon that gave destroyer escorts teeth. The mortar that rewrote submarine warfare, the Hedgehog. Every event, number, and name in this documentary has been verified through historical and documented sources. If you found this story fascinating, leave a comment about which naval weapon from World War II you'd like to see featured next.